Let her conquer me and fall like a soul. I run into the heat of day, like a knife I fight until the fight is won. In the rain I save each and every one till this war is won.
Doing a retrospective series on the Assassin's Creed series is an interesting venture since it is the Ubisoft meal ticket. I know that they have access to other games like the Tom Clancy series of stuff and Prince of Persia along with a whole other bunch of nonsense, but Assassin's Creed is the top dog. You get a real sense of how that whole people will buy anything idea stuck, and how they began falling into every horrible publisher tactic in the book, earning them the moniker of the European EA, the second worst in existence, sadistic executives, and whatever else the internet can churn up. Back in the early days of the series, the company at least had some integrity to itself and it didn't start falling out of the tree yet. The development of Assassin's Creed 2, unlike other games in the series, actually took time to develop since this game was released in 2009, 2 years after the original, and B, took the deserved criticism of Assassin's Creed to try and reinvent itself for the sequel. The work speaks for itself, as the constant checklists and repetitive gameplay have been annihilated. The side quests are varied now, taking cue from the Bloodlines level design with different types of missions, and the world maps are bigger, more colorful, and more dense. However, some backhanded compliments do arise from this. 1. The cities this game generates, while still being more interesting to work in, still does not give the player a good sense of getting to know the cities well. There are no identifiable landmarks, no differentiation between the city's districts, and nothing to really give the player other than a commute to each mission. The artistry of the set design is great, but the sandbox itself doesn't add much for the game, and that goes for the side quests as well. This game is quoted to have hiding within its walls 200 unique missions, main and side, to find, and that may be true. The problem is that there's no benefit for doing any of the game's side quests. The missions don't have intriguing plot lines like an Elder Scrolls game, and the only reward you can get for doing any of them is money, of which you aren't in need since the game's economy is totally broken. Like Ocarina of Time level broken, if you can believe that, and that mostly comes from the harbinger of the Assassin's Creed series' demise into being the Call of Duty sandbox game, the town development mechanic. Early in the game, Ezio is introduced to his uncle Mario's villa.
Don't you recognize me? It's me, Mario!
And one of his grumblings is that the villa his family has spent forever protecting is falling apart due to the lack of resources and his motivation to fix anything. He doesn't know where he's gonna get the money, but is able to find a competent architect to oversee construction. Ezio has to personally fund the restoration of the villa, and the reward for doing so is bringing in more citizens to the city and therefore more commerce. The city generates money, and the city is really the only thing in the game you can sink all the money into, and since the city generates more when you do this and is the only objective for all the money in the game, once you finish developing the entire villa, there is nothing else in the game to spend all the money on, and it just grows into a Scrooge McDuckian fortune that you can't do anything with. A tragic irony we'll see in the next game in the series. The best weapon in the game you acquire in the villa at a pittance, and the best armor is collected from a decent enough side quest. Since Ubisoft loves to attempt cinematic development styles, which in most cases means that their video games adopt every stereotypical film idea that they can find. Altair from the last game has been dolled up as basically Link Skywalker. I mean Luke Skywalker is essentially the first assassin to exist, and for some super duper logical reason, Uncle Mario has acquired the armor of Altair, and it's the best armor in the whole game. The game even strains to tell you that in order to get full synchronization of AC2, you need that armor. The side quest to get it isn't too bad. You need to gather 6 tokens hidden by off-screen assassins in their tombs, which are scattered across Italy and only Italy, because fuck yeah, Italy's the best! The tombs are found by doing parkour challenges, and the difficulty curve isn't that bad. Some are really obtuse and will make you want to torch that assassin's corpse for whatever petty satisfaction that can give, for you having to spend your time jumping around a building for half an hour. Having Altair's armor looks cool as hell. I don't know what happened between Bloodlines and 2, but Altair's armor is the most badass cosmetic to get in the game, as well as the best stats. Since the best armor in the game doesn't cost anything to get other than time, that fact destroys the economy of the game. This is a problem because nobody is going to heavily invest the money into buying weapons when the ultimate upgrade is free, and no one is going to give a shit about extra health since there's no difficulty in fighting any of the enemies. The combat still sucks ass. There's no real difference between the original and the sequel's combat mechanics, despite Ubisoft wanting you to know so by raining down a typhoon of new abilities onto Ezio's head, most of which are completely useless. Also, why in God's name did they withhold the spring jump ability until the halfway point of the game? The climbing in this game is already sticky enough. You shouldn't be making it worse by hiding the solution in a lockbox. All you really need for combat is the counterattack, because actually attacking anybody doesn't work. They have like an 85% blocking rate unless they're distracted. If you are fighting a mob in a group, you can go around and one-hit kill all the enemies as long as you're behind them, a skill which ironically the game doesn't teach you. Plus, doing the combat rarely deals damage to Ezio. He can block nearly 100% effectively to keep most of his health. You usually lose all your health failing at parkour and then having to pay to get your stupid armor fixed, because having breakable armor has not been discovered as a universally terrible game mechanic yet. Additionally, the game gives you a huge grace period when you start dying that essentially makes Ezio invulnerable to combat. It takes like 3 to 5 hits on death's door to actually kill Ezio, and if you avoid getting hurt in that time for like 10 seconds, you get a health point back, meaning that it takes like 6 hits in a row to kill Ezio. I know that the combat in a sandbox is never going to be the main draw of one of your games, but there has to be something better than this bullshit. It's not fun since you are never in danger, and there's never any creativity to combat to let you figure out your own strategies and become a true badass warrior. While Ezio isn't going to be remarkable for being able to outwit any foe and survive by the skin of his teeth, the engine is keeping him alive, just like the screenwriter is the only person keeping Sterling Archer alive anymore. His character arc is one of the highlights of the game and what keeps propelling his dumb assing ass into people's top 10 main character lists. He starts the game as a complete douchebag noble, kind of like Altair would have looked if he had a personality. He's barely being educated, doesn't give a shit about developing himself, and spends all his money on beer and girls. He's the type of character that can walk into a room, ask for a fuck, and actually not be kicked in the face for doing so. His family likes this side of him, and the charming womanizer can be a fun character if he's not an absolute dickhead. However, his parents do want him to see the bigger picture of his life, which led to this odd exchange.
I have plenty of outlets.
I meant besides vaginas.
Mother.
For modern Ubisoft, always playing the safely written, generalized game card, it's weird to see them throw out that brash line. Not a lot of people would actually go there, especially a character who literally becomes mute after the intro. The game starts like a lot of other stories, with the character suddenly being ripped from their life and shoved into either despair or vengeance. They obviously go with the latter for Ezio, as a rival family trumps up some bogus crimes and one of his conspirators has all the males of his family hung in the streets. Ezio survives via dumb luck and begins his quest to becoming a master assassin like aforementioned Luke Skywalker. He takes refuge with his uncle Mario, gets embroiled in the political landscape of the city-state Italia, and learns the tools and trades of his heritage via some well-meaning mercenaries, thieves, and whores. Yes, actual prostitutes. Assassin's Creed 2 really raised the bar for its series at the time. Throughout all of this, Ezio grows the hell up. It doesn't hurt that over the course of the game, Ezio has aged like 12 years. He's laid down some roots in Venice, he's laid with some more girls, and has been leading down the path of his assassin lifestyle. It's something very appealing to play through and experience, and his position as one of gaming's best protagonists is definitely earned. Not a total fluke considering the game's other role bearers are similarly well captured. A good example is Leonardo da Vinci for how this game takes its history lessons, because unlike something in, let's say, Magic School Bus, Leonardo doesn't just stand around saying and doing the things that has made him famous, and he also doesn't go around with the self-righteousness of a man knowing that he's going to be famous after he dies. He's a character, he has flaws, and the writers treat this even-handedly, marking him as a genius in whatever crafts he attempts, but also showcases his apathy to actually do anything and the constant lack of focus that leads him to helping Ezio's goals while supposedly being commissioned for works of art and the like. This creates a charming portrayal of the history book Leonardo because we get to know more about him before we know about his work. The other history book pointers are characters like the Barbarigo and Pazzi family, who are less well known to the layman, and why I didn't use them as examples, but they get the same character first, achievement second writing as Leonardo. What helps this a ton is the game's newly implemented Wikipedia system where Sean, the snarky ass British stereotype, is the guy writing all of the Wikipedia entries for every place and character in the game. The writing comes off as actually being written by him rather than being written by the lazy robotic option of just stating dates and descriptions. Sean is interpreting the stuff Ezio finds and sticks to the finer points that are relevant to the mission rather than relevant in general to history. And he occasionally pops in his own sarcastic asides about the history of the area to show that not everything is as black as white as they seem in the history books. What this ends up creating is something that entertains as well as it educates, and if Ubisoft is willing to stick to the facts, then this becomes quality stuff rather than just an entertainment product that just references history, like the TV show Supernatural. Plus, Sean himself is the best character you're going to get in the Desmond bullshit, which still hasn't progressed to anything real from the original game. I'll try to keep the overarching advancements concise, for the sake of time. Desmond is busted out of Abstergo by Lucy and some off-screen guys and brought to the assassin side of things at a safe/warehouse occupied by Rebecca, stereotypical tech nerd girl character who is the most dull of this great bunch of bastards, and Sean, guy caught between coincidences and who found himself a new desk job after Abstergo almost murdered him. He likes to bitch and moan and basically earns his paycheck solely from his American appealing accent. Desmond is sat in the new Animus built by Rebecca in order to learn more assassin skills from Ezio's memory line in order to become a full-fledged assassin. That's pretty much the whole story here. Through Ezio, he also vaguely learns about a solar disaster looming above everything, but the game barely spends any time on that revelation. Wait, stop the video. Go back to that screen from before. Go back to that screen. What did it say? Okay, it says that the gods were too busy with the war of the ancient humans that they created, that they were too busy to notice that the sun was about to explode, so the sun exploded and torched the entire planet. That happened, and all the humans survived. The Earth went back to normal, assumingly using the technology from the humans who survived the apocalypse. And you're telling me that this is something that we should be worried about, to the point that you have a projection playing to the prophet just for the purpose of playing it to the future to save everybody. That is the stupidest frickin' prophecy I've ever frickin' heard. Just have Minerva tell Desmond to do the same exact thing the ancient humans did to survive the apocalypse. The problem solved. We don't actually have to stop the apocalypse if it's easily survivable. I'm sorry I'm taking time out of the video, but I just had to point that out while I was editing the video because that just boggles my frickin' mind. This is the plot point that they're using for the overarching bit for like the next 3 games, and it's so freaking stupid, I can't believe it. Did Ubisoft seriously look at this over and over again and decide that it was a good idea? Because at least when Halo did this shit, it made sense. There was an ancient, hidden, buried creature that was turning everything into zombies and was literally unstoppable because it doesn't need to eat and it doesn't need to do the normal things that things need to do to survive, so it's actually a threat to the entire galaxy. This is a threat to nothing, because you have already established in this cutscene that there's a way to survive the apocalypse. Again, I'm sorry I'm taking so much time to point this out, but that is the most stupid thing I've ever heard in a series built on such stupid sci-fi concepts already. Anyway, let's get back to the show before people start getting mad at me for doing this. We also learn a bit about Subject 16, who preceded Desmond and died in his experiments. Within Ezio's memory line, he encoded some quote-unquote truth files that the player can put together that, spoiler alert, shows almost nothing in that horrible divergent level of storytelling where the only revelations the story writers give only lead to more questions. The video, from what I can gather from just watching it, is apparently Adam and Eve jumping around a sci-fi complex full of advanced technology and other primordial human-type people that represent the Garden of Eden. The video tells us that the primordial humans exist, but not what they were doing or why it's important to modern-day humanity, which is what makes it calling it the truth and making it so hidden behind player-abusing puzzles so completely galling. I would recommend players of the game to skip it entirely and just watch the truth on YouTube, which you can do here, since I just played the whole video for you, spoilers alert. There's no real in-world reason to actually find it. Plus, the puzzles that accompany this 20-file Easter egg hunt are the absolute worst. Some of them manage to surpass the bullshit of the Sierra games. I mean, just look at this bullshit. What the fuck am I supposed to do with this? Oh, and then there's this. Does this even look solvable to your perspective? Yeah, I'm cherry-picking the worst of the worst just to illustrate, but the rest aren't any better. Here's a puzzle where you pick a bunch of pictures that have some vague connection to each other. The game doesn't give you any hints, so if you don't get it in the first few tries, you really are just pouring time and time into these puzzles, just clicking on things at random, and that's not solving an actual puzzle. That's a dick move. The game does eventually give you a hint if you stare at the puzzle for like 20 minutes, which again is a bigger dick move. Just give us the hint at the start and stop being so coy about this. There's nothing fun about a goddamn sliding tile type puzzle. It's just pointless busy work that doesn't do anything. And yes, YouTube commenters, I know that this bullshit is supposed to represent the extensive encoding that Subject 16 had to do in order to hide his findings from the Templars, but that is a flimsy ass excuse for creating such insolvent nonsense that not even the people he wanted to see this would be able to figure it the hell out. While these train wrecks are standing in the middle of your game, the plot that you are avoiding for the moment is why this game gets a recommendation from me. It's actually telling a linear narrative of interesting missions rather than handing you constant triplicate forms. The player is never allowed to really get a handle on things that are set to happen in these missions. It could involve a prison break, competing at the Carnivale as an infiltration tactic, or the money shot, trailer-made mission where Ezio has to take Leonardo's glider as a plan to break into the impenetrable palace. However, the actual assassination missions are total shit endings in either a chase or a protracted button-mashing mess of quote-unquote combat. Hell, the assassinations are sometimes so easy that once I completed the mission in a complete accident. I know that you can't do much when our targets are always regular dudes in fancy hats, but you can at least try to do something that's worth mentioning. When the preparation stuff is more fun than the actual mission, I think you fucked up somewhere. And in one particular area was with Rodrigo Borgia himself, big bad Mac Daddy of the Templars. Throughout the game, we see the Spaniard manipulating events as the Templar families begin their conspiracies to route the concept of freedom through their believed ideas of security and human development. This is always a good thing to see because for a villain to feel threatening, he actually needs to be threatening things. One major issue is that he's always shown to be threatening his own cohorts more than any of the assassins, and that's probably because he's more of a statecrafter than a warrior. We fight his robed ass once the final mission, and when I can say that a viable tactic to fight him is to hit the X button until the X button falls off, again, you damn well fucked up. There's the hilarious videos you can find of people playing this game and the infamous curb stomping the Pope scene, which shows my whole point. Rodrigo Borgia is another boring villain of the Assassin's Creed series, always being told that he's a supervillain but never shown. And when it's his time to put up or shut up, he falls like a house of cards in a hurricane. Seriously, hand the controller over during the final boss fight to whoever and have a drink break. You earned it, champ, and you'll definitely win that way. When Assassin's Creed first released in 2007, there was some tangible hate out for its life, and it was deserved. Altair was a terrible character, there was no reason for the game to be a sandbox, the mission sucked the life out of the player for 12 hours, and all the villains were comically stupid, and it is gratifying to see that Ubisoft used to have the ability to respond to its critics by crafting Assassin's Creed 2, which kicked the original game to pieces in every single possible way. Ezio's an amazing character and an amazing arc. The story and missions are crafted with some actual thought. There's some side quest variety now if you really want to do them. The set design is spectacular. The added features make dealing with the sandbox easier, namely fast travel. It makes the player feel like they're embroiled in the political stage that Ezio keeps finding himself on as a tactical person eraser, and his quest for vengeance helps tie together our investment in the assassinations a hell of a lot better than Muslim Santa just saying so and because. Assassin's Creed 2 is a rock-solid sandbox game that showed that maybe the series would have had some promise and people could look forward to more sequels before Ubisoft stopped giving a shit and went off the flippin' deep end. Look forward to seeing more of Captain Numbskull in the future because Ezio was given a heck of a more than a trilogy in the expanded universe of Assassin's Creed games. And next week's title will be something that's a bit off the beaten path, so hopefully we'll find another hidden diamond there. Until next time, I leave you with some final numbers. And give you guys a well-deserved Vittoria per il giocatore. Grazie per aver guardato.